Okay, so what is the difference between the TRICOM module program and the TRICOM grading system?
So essentially, TRICOM was originally developed modular because in law enforcement, where it was originally designed, training is typically done in very specific areas of focus. It could be, for example, I'm learning to use a taser, I'm learning to use pepper spray, a baton, I'm learning how to do ground survival, handcuffing. And so it was designed in a way that people could focus on the area that was most relevant to what their training goals were. And it's easier also for someone to, if they're hyper-focused on one area, it's easier to get to an instructor level because it's not a full system, it's just one area of study. So that was the roots of the system. And it's become a very robust system, and a lot of people want to learn the full program, which is, to my knowledge, is probably one of the most multi-dimensional combatives programs in the world, based on the number of areas of study in combatives that we focus on. And so now people have the opportunity to learn all of the modules together in a kind of a step-by-step process, going from A to Z, and it ends with really mastery in the full TRICOM program.
It sounds like there's a lot to learn, and there's a whole developmental arc. What was some challenges for you, and how do you organize something like this? Where do you begin?
It's been a challenge because, like you mentioned, it's such a robust system that has been developed in modular programs that combining them all together has taken a lot of thought processes to see, okay, people are learning these things first, and then they progress to these things, learning all of the modules, not just one at a time, but they're learning all of the modules together in a step-by-step program. So it's been a challenge putting it together. We've done our best effort to what we believe is a very well thought out program.
So how do you manage sharing techniques versus students understanding broader concepts? How does that all come together?
As much as possible within the training videos, when it's necessary, I like to feed some of those concepts and principles, because like you mentioned, learning techniques does not make a good program. It's understanding principles and philosophies, and I'm very principle focused. Obviously, techniques are essential, but if I can understand the principles, it's easier to be able to apply those techniques that I'm learning to multiple scenarios, I believe. And so I do focus on those principles, and I try and plug them in where I can throughout the different lessons.
Okay, so there are people who are already students of TRICOM who have taken the modular path. Perhaps they've taken one or two, or maybe they've taken quite a few of the modules. What is the benefit for them to undertake this grading system now, where they're learning all of it almost simultaneously, it sounds like?
Yeah, absolutely. So particularly for people that are looking for a robust self-defense combatives type program, it's going to give them pretty much everything that they would need to study in a self-defense system. But even to give them a deeper level of understanding, and for example, if they're an instructor in the edge weapon countermeasures module, to get a really deep understanding in the concepts and techniques presented there, if they understand the full TRICOM system, it's going to allow them to be able to, one, apply and teach the techniques better, but just get a better understanding of where these techniques come from and how I can apply essentially the same techniques and principles to multiple types of self-defense scenarios.
Okay, so this being a combative self-defense program, I imagine there's clinch work involved, there's standing, striking, and groundwork.
All of the above.
So is this like
more.
Is it a replacement for learning jiu-jitsu or learning boxing or Muay Thai? How do those things integrate? Let's say if I was a jiu-jitsu guy already.
Yeah, no, I would never say they're a replacement, because I am a big advocate of finding an area of martial arts that you're passionate about and take a deep dive into that. So it's not a replacement, it's really supplemental. We're covering things like, for example, if jiu-jitsu is your passion, we're covering a lot of the scope of self-defense that is not covered in jiu-jitsu. If Muay Thai is your passion, you're going to really excel in the areas where we're getting into the striking, and grapplers are going to really excel in the areas of ground survival. But we're really expanding the scope of self-defense, which is really broad if you kind of really think about all the possibilities of things that can happen in a self-defense world. But also, for people that are kind of specializing in those particular areas, it's really going to resonate with them, and when we get into the areas that they're more passionate about.
This program has utilization of and defense of different weapons. Mm-hmm. What if I wasn't into karambit or knife, or I wasn't into stick work? Why should I learn the full scope of things in that regard?
Well, one of our philosophies within TRICOM is that one of the best ways to survive in any self-defense situation, but particularly a life or death type encounter, is to utilize force multipliers. Okay, find ways to make what you're capable of physically much better or enhance that. And weapons are the way to do that. And this is not a novel concept. This is from time immemorial. People have used weapons to defend themselves forever, and it doesn't have to be a deadly force weapon. We talk about less lethal type force, but at the same time, even though I may not be interested in that particular weapon system, we get into knives, karambits, short impact weapons, long impact weapons. The concepts that you'll see, we're using the same movements for all of those weapons, whether it's edged or impact. And so people are learning to basically essentially utilize anything that may be at their disposal as a weapon of opportunity. So force multipliers is the focus, and not just the particular weapon we're training with, but understanding the concepts as they apply to anything that may be around you.
So how is a program like this appropriate for people who have no experience and people who have a ton of experience? It seems like a difficult thing to be able to serve in one.
Well, an example, you talked about someone that may be passionate about jiu-jitsu, for example. When you attend a jiu-jitsu program, you're learning, you're kind of jumping into a cycle of study for that particular school. What we're giving people with regards to ground defense is basically what are the most important elements of ground survival in a self-defense situation, things you should be thinking about in a real-world environment versus a controlled environment. So we're giving people programs and things to focus on, even if they may be specialists in the particular area. People that are good strikers, well, how can you utilize those skills, one, within in ways that can be mitigate the amount of damage you're going to do to your opponent or to yourself, because you got to think about legalities too. So someone that's advanced, they're actually getting programs, and they're also definitely getting areas of study where I would wager they've never studied, because it's such a broad program. Right. For people that are new, TRICOM was originally designed for people that have no experience in anything. It was designed originally for a new police cadet that arrived at a police academy.
Right.
These are the roots of the system, that had no knowledge in anything, and how can I teach them in a short period of time some functional and retainable skills that they could use on the street as a police officer. So those are the roots. And so someone that's coming into the TRICOM system new, not a problem, because we literally start from scratch, from the ground up.
Man, okay. It sounds like there's a lot of thought. Overall, from its very inception up until this very moment where it's about to release, how much time do you think was involved in this whole project?
I mean, from the inception of the TRICOM system?
Yeah, exactly.
Gosh, honestly, 22 years at this point. From the point that I started teaching law enforcement in my law enforcement career 22 years ago, police academy instructor, training unit, teaching in-house training and new cadets. That's when it started. And then the evolution went through my contracts with Army Special Forces, training soldiers, and then being called upon in different units, literally the whole world over, to teach Special Forces units, close protection teams. So it's really just expanded and evolved. The core of the system is pretty much consistent, but I've found new drills, new techniques, things that were compatible with the system, and it just got better and better, and still does. I'm still open-minded. I like the program to be a world-class program, so I'm always making little tweaks here and there, but it has been 22 years in the making.
I was just about to ask, for recruits and people with little experience, there has to be like a finality to that block of training. So you're kind of balancing something that's finite with something that is infinite.
Correct. Yeah. And that's what this program will give. We do have a finite program. I mean, because we do study within the whole program so many areas, it becomes a pretty robust program. It's a pretty big program, but we have so much overlap within. For example, if I'm learning edge weapon defense, or I'm learning how to use a baton or an impact weapon, a lot of those consistencies across those different categories are universal. So you're learning the footwork, the movement, the body mechanics are the same. So it's a more streamlined process in how you're learning them, so that kind of helps people to kind of pick things up that they may have never studied. Yeah.
let's say I'm watching this video and I'm like, okay, that all sounds good. I'm kind of convinced I want to give it a try. Tell me there's a free trial of some sort.
We do have, yeah, we do actually. We've got a free trial program that will be launching after the initial launch because it's just such a new program. It's not quite ready yet, but we will have a free trial program. But there's really no commitment. People can sign up for a month and then cancel their subscription in a month. So it's really minimal for people that want to kind of get into it. It's a really minimal investment. But there are some free trials that we will be launching following up with the initial launch too.
People like free.
Absolutely, and why not, right?
Yeah.
It'll give you kind of a taste of and see if it's something that's for you.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, my
Appreciate
pleasure.
People like free. All right. Thank you very much. How long was that? I would say
Almost 8 minutes.
cool. Hit stop.